Hello, everyone, and welcome back to CK Café. I'm so excited for today's conversation. We're talking with theater maker Julia Segal. CK got its start doing theater, so for me, theater is just so special. We still love doing theater when we can, and anytime I get a chance to talk to someone who's so passionate about theater, it just rekindles my love and my joy for it. And talking about musical theater specifically with Julia was so much fun. So I hope you enjoy this really insightful episode about indie theater and beyond. Hey everyone, welcome back to CK Café. Today I am joined by a really amazing creative who works in the singer-songwriter, musical theater world, does a bunch of stuff, a true multi-hyphenate. Julia, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm so good. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course, of course. Can you fully introduce yourself? Tell us what you do, what your form of art is.
Yeah. So my name is Julia Segal. I'm based in New York City and I'm a musical theater writer and performer. And I'm in the singer-songwriter space that you touched upon as a writer and performer as well. So I definitely touch on a couple different areas of those industries right now. And I'm kind of honing in my focus right now with musical theater, which was always kind of my first love and entree, I think, into like everything creative. My dream is that I'm kind of doing a bunch of different things at one time, but I'm writing a couple musicals right now. So that's kind of my like primary direction, I would say, though that's like a whole other conversation because I'm sure that you guys probably just understand that feeling of what do I prioritize and when, especially as a young artist, because it's like, it's so exciting that we're laying the groundwork for what our career is going to be and also like currently living in it. But sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, like, what if I just focused on actually one thing? And like, would that be like, that's just such a constant thing in my head. I think you were like, introduce yourself. And I'm like, I'm just going straight into like my whole mental psyche right now. But
No, I
yeah.
totally get that. I mean, I think it's hard. Like when you do a lot of work like you do, it's hard to balance everything, but also hard to, like you touched on, put a focus on certain things that you're working on. And I think in turn then becomes really complicated to also explain what you do, So I get that fully. People ask me all the time, even if it's family members or friends, like, what do you do? What do you work on? And I'm like, it's so hard to explain because also like the behind the scenes stuff is so hard. Like the performance aspect of it, right? I'm sure if you're talking about you and your art as a musician or as an actor or as a performer, it feels a little easier. It feels a little more black and white. But when you start going back into the weeds, they're like, I'm working on a musical. Okay, what does that mean? Oh, well, I'm writing this. I'm doing this. So it's a lot. And it's a lot of work. So I give you tons of credit. You're working on 2 musicals, you said, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. What can you tell us a little bit about each of the musicals? Because that's really, really awesome. I mean, a musical is no joke. I've been a part of many musicals from a producing standpoint and directing standpoint, and I know how hard it is to get original work off the ground, but
Yeah.
also how hard it is just to create the original work. So can you, yeah, tell us a little bit about the process and how it's going and what each of these are about?
Well, I'll definitely have to pick your brain at some point about the producing process because
Please.
that's the area that I'm trying to figure out right now. It's just like constant networking and workshops and putting yourself out there. And
Yeah.
like, I do really like that part of it too. But like you said, it's completely separate from the actual act of sitting down and writing or composing. So yeah, it's like you have to be in both of those worlds, I guess,
Yeah.
unless you're working with people who are doing one part of it. But I'm kind of set right now on being the sole force for these
It's
projects,
amazing.
but maybe ask me in a couple of months and I'd be like, I was crazy for saying that. So my first musical that's pretty much in a finished stage that I'm pitching right now, the TYA Theater for Young Audiences musical about magic. So my younger sister is actually a professional magician. She performs full time in Chicago, performs in LA. She performs all over the world like Penn and Teller. She's incredible, such an inspiration of mine. And she wrote this children's book about a young girl that becomes a magician. It's called Shelly Shazam. And my sister is like, I would say my creative muse. She's also someone that like the way she approaches her creativity is so inspiring and just so different from my brain. I guess like one quick example is like she can just sit around all day and like be happily and eagerly engaged in projects like all day long. Meanwhile, I'm someone that has a hard time focusing. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could just like leisurely go through the whole day and bounce from thing to thing and just like genuinely feel happy and motivated to do that. So I try to take that little piece of her sometimes, but yeah, I wanted to collaborate with her on something. And so I wrote the musical to this story. And what I'm really excited about is, well, one, it's in that children's theater space, but also it features live close up parlor style magic on stage.
So cool. Ah,
Yeah. So the actors will have to be magicians, which is exciting, and they'll have to be kids. But also, I don't know if they're kids. Like, that's still a question of like, they could be adults playing kids, and I'm like super flexible and excited to like whoever I end up working with, like if they have ideas on that.
that is so fun. I love like any children's theater, like both from a performance and like producing side, or also just watching it. I think it's so fun, and it's a world that like every bit of your imagination can be used to create that world on stage. I think it's so special. Cool to
Yeah.
collaborate with you. That's awesome. So did she write the book for the musical as well, or did you handle sort of adapting that original book into a musical?
Yeah, I adapted the book into a musical, but she self-published the children's book.
That's
It's
incredible.
sitting proudly on my shelf and illustrated it and everything. And
Wow.
yeah, so she's the show's magic consultant.
I love
So
that.
the cast, yeah,
So,
she'll teach
so,
them.
so cool. That's awesome. How was that process adapting from another medium into a musical? What was that like for you?
It was a more seamless process than I would say my current show is going in terms of the book,
Sure.
because having that source material there, it's just like a really great entry point.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes it a little bit easier to like start from somewhere.
Yeah,
Have a piece that's already fleshed out and the world is there. And it's like coloring it in, just like filling in the blanks there to turn it into that new medium.
totally. And like you read one sentence of the book and then it's like song title, okay, I've got it.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like launches into itself, which is a really cool process. But then like I also sometimes like when I was brainstorming for my next musical, like I just feel like in the musical theater world, there's so many adaptations of just like so many things
Yeah.
that I'm just like, does there need to be a musical? Yes. Which is like me being maybe a little judgmental, or me like having my own blockage of like, well, I don't have an idea right now of what should be. So like, why is it? But you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
like,
Totally.
does everything need to be a musical?
Yeah. And it's kind of a good way to be though, but like I think for any artist, right? Like to have that sort of awareness ahead of time before you go into creating any form of art, I think is super cool because you're not just making it to make it, you're making it and you're being thoughtful about it. So I think you're on the right track. I think anytime you're asking yourself, does this need to be a musical? Does this need to happen? Exist
Question
in the
one.
world? I mean, I think, and then when you can figure out the why, that's everything, right? Because if you do figure out why it needs to be whatever form of art it is, then it becomes something special. And that's where the passion comes in, right? That's when
Yeah.
all the excitement comes out. But well, that's so awesome. So what about
Yeah.
this other musical you're working on? Because balancing two is hard. Yeah. What's the second one?
Yeah, well, that why is like the central anchor in my like current struggle. The second one right now, because I have all these themes and songs. Like I have a lot of like floating material right now that I'm still trying to piece together into a cohesive story. I have an idea for the story and like I'll tell you it here, but also this idea could very well change because I started with the songs for this show. So I had like a good amount of just kind of standalone musical theater songs that I was writing that I was loving because I was pretty much just writing pop music. And then I kind of started to just like bring a little more of a theater quality to it. And it just kind of expanded from there. And like they feel very much just like contemporary pop theater songs, like Pasek and Paul, Kerrigan, Loudermilk, like those kind of vibes, those contemporary shows like Jason Robert Brown, like I'm trying to name other shows, but that's kind of like the musical theater that I grew up loving.
Yeah.
And honestly, as a performer, sometimes felt too that I was like, why is my voice so good for this contemporary stuff? But sometimes in that classical land, I was just like, oh, I don't know if this is me, but now like contemporary musical theater has like taken on a life of its
Oh
own.
yeah, it's
And I feel like it's
exploded.
like
Yeah.
more popular
Oh yeah.
in at least like I would say like the off Broadway, like the up and coming rising. Like everyone is just writing in that style.
It's pretty insane
Um
to see. Yeah, it's
yeah,
insane. It's
like
really shifted.
do you write songs?
I do. Yeah, I make
Yeah.
music more so for fun, and like I do score films as well, like on the side, just something that I love to do. But you know,
Yeah.
as far as writing musical theater, I've definitely tried. I've written two books for two musicals that we have in development that we've been sort of working on forever, and hopefully one day they can have a life. But
Yes.
yeah, I know the process and I know how hard it can be. But I also know, you know, like you said, like there is a certain cadence or feeling to the contemporary musical theater. It draws me in too because I feel like it's a way to relate to today's audience. You know, I think like when I look at classical musical theater from like the 50s and 40s and you know 60s, I feel like they have a certain feeling to it that feels right for the time period and feels right to the type of art people were consuming. Now we just
Yeah.
consume different kind of art, you know? So it's like I feel like that contemporary style, I know a lot of people judge it and
Yeah.
don't love it. And I know some people are obsessed with it. But I think it's like, it's the form of musical theater for now, right? It's what makes musical theater so amazing. You know, like it's not just telling stories in a classical way, it's finding a way to tell a story. And I can no longer speak it. I just need to sing it now. And I need to do this 10-minute dance break, you know? So like
Literally.
I think that contemporary style is so cool and yeah, I know how challenging it could be to
Yeah.
write. I mean, it's tough.
Well, you said that is like such a beautiful way of, I think, yeah, not even justifying, but just like saying like this is it because this is now. And like I feel like you hold, at least I like knew I held on a lot to like the kind of like theater education stuff that was really drilled into me. Like
Sure.
I had an incredible high school theater program. Like I was really lucky to just, went to a public school in Massachusetts, and I just like that school gave me so many incredible opportunities and classes and all this stuff. And that really kind of like gave me the foundation. But I feel like when you're learning about theater, it is just that more like this is what theater is. So I
Yeah,
guess maybe that was where like some of the
100%.
resistance maybe was. But yeah, but speaking to like what the current audiences want, kind of like back to the origin stories of that second show was I I had been like trying on TikTok for so long with my pop songs, and I was just like, I feel like it's like everyone is just like every creative is like tries TikTok, and I'm like, may as well, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And like nothing really happened. I went to a couple like chocolate chip cookie places in New York, and I was like, me and my friend were like, we're gonna just like document our journey and like find the best cookie in New York, because like I love watching like food talk and like all those videos, whatever.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
I had 3 of them that like blew up, like completely viral, of like come find the best chocolate chip cookie in New York City with me. And I was like, it was so fun having a video go viral, but I'm like, I have been posting my music on this app for like so long. And then this cookie bit, like,
I know the struggle.
it was,
Yeah, I know that feeling. That
yeah,
feeling of being so hard to get like your audience with your art, but then you get your audience with something so not your art.
so random.
It's the worst. And it's hard because then like the way these algorithms work, it's like now you're like, oh great, now I have an audience. Let me show them my music. And then it doesn't show them anything. It's
No,
like
literally.
I know. I've felt that way with films or with theater projects, with
Yeah.
anything where it's like one thing does well, but that doesn't mean that everything else automatically does well after that. So I know the struggle, but I've seen some of your
Yeah.
TikTok videos. I went through your profile and I saw a bunch of your singing videos and I love them. I especially love the style that you're doing now where you're showing your musical theater sort of songs, and then the focus on the genre, because to me, I feel like musical theater also is like, it's the only art form that you can have two completely different experiences with, right? Like you have the live experience of like actually absorbing what the art piece is. But then you also have this like casual listening side of it where you can just like turn on a musical just like you would any other song, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, and that is so special to me. Like a movie, you can't really do it the same way, you know? You can't really, yeah, it's always a visual medium, but
Yeah.
like a musical has this like multi-layered way you can experience it. So I've always viewed the music as a genre of itself, and like it's just something you can enjoy. And I love your songs on there. Like, I think they're so great. In one of your videos, I saw it, they commented, it was like the top comment on there, and it said that it was very like Sarah Bareilles coded or something like that. And I was like, 100%. I was like, this is giving waitress vibes, like that kind of like, yeah. And that great contemporary musical theater, right? Like that style, which I feel like is not just, poppy for pop's sake, but it has like, it's like rooted in all of the nuance that makes musical theater so great, but it's adding elements of like that indie pop or like folk pop, and like, yeah, it's really great. Really,
Wow.
really awesome stuff.
Thank
So,
you so much for saying that and for describing it that way, because that's truly what I'm trying to achieve with the music. Basically, like the TikTok journey kind of restarted when I threw a couple musical theater songs on there. And yeah, I had like two of them go viral, which was
oh,
cool. I mean, like
amazing.
mini viral.
Yeah.
But the coolest part was that I had hundreds and hundreds of messages of performers reaching out to me saying they wanted to sing those songs. And I have
Oh,
never experienced something like that in my life.
oh, that's
But that was
amazing.
just like this moment of like, okay, these songs need to be more than just this video.
Yep.
And so that's why, and what you were saying too, my mind was just spinning about like, I love the like visual and the listening component too. And that's something I think so much about, because like my first instinct was I was like, let me just make a concept album. Let me just get a bunch of songs out there, let me record them and let me stream them, which a lot of people in the contemporary space do right now. And it's successful. But then I was like, I think that my true goal and dream, it's always back to the live stuff.
Yeah.
Like that is
Yeah.
when I feel like I am just like in the most true version of myself, is either like performing and singing or watching something, or like this is still a very new experience for me, but like watching other people sing my songs.
Yeah.
It's just like people talk about flow state, but it's like flow state for me, like it's always going to be live. So I'm like, I think I need to prioritize that. I think I need to figure out a concept for a show. Let's hold on the concept album until this is a show. But like that might not be the right answer. Like if these songs are doing well and getting good reception, maybe they should come before a show.
Honestly,
but
it's so tricky.
I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, hey, like, if you're asking
Yeah.
for genuine advice, like these days, it's really about capturing audiences' really short attention span. And I often try to relate it to the people who I know are similar to me, right? Because when I approach any piece of art and I'm producing it, if I look at an audience and think of everybody who likes that medium. So if it's film lovers, if it's theater lovers, if it's music lovers, if I start just thinking of everybody, I'm not making something that's actually going to be of substance, right? I have to think of who is this for? Who am I actually making this piece of content for, right? And I turn on that marketing brain of mine, right? And I mentioned to you off camera, we do a lot of marketing work. And in that marketing stuff, we are always asking ourselves, who is that for? Who is that movie, that piece of art, whatever it is, right? So what I honestly think is like, just go back and think like, see what works. People are asking for the song, give them a song. But also if what your heart is in is live performance, to me, the best thing you can do is try and show your work as often as possible.
Yeah.
I find that more true with theater than any other form. Because like, if you're not performing your work and you're just like sending people demos or scripts or whatever, it never is going to go anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, because then like, it's not the same, like the feeling that you feel when you are in a room, even if it's a workshop and you're in a rehearsal room at Pearl Studios or Ripley Greer or one of these places in New York,
Yeah.
and you're performing the show for a handful of people on folding chairs, just that feeling, that intimate connection, you create a spark there because it's live and it's in that one moment that cannot be replicated. And then also, like, if I'm sending out to anybody that I think maybe can help me produce a project, I have to understand that they're probably also busy. If they're in that position where they can help me either financially or with production support, then I have to also be honest and say they might not get a chance to ever check this out. But if you can get them to sit down in a room and listen to it live, no better feeling, So yeah, I'm all for the live aspect of it. Trust me, I love live theater, and I think there's nothing better in the world. There's not a single art form that is better than when you are sitting down in a theater and experiencing art. And I love movies and music and everything, but there's something about an actor speaking to you or singing to you that is just, that connection just feels electric,
Yeah. I love that. Wow. And the way you talk about all this is so beautiful and
Oh, thank you.
well thought out. I
Thank
can
you.
tell you create a lot of these opportunities for
Oh,
yourself and probably for the people that you work with. It is
thank
so
you.
much about creating the moments to have your work seen, I think, at this
Yeah.
stage too.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the indie stage, right? Then the hardest part about indie theater is just trying to get the project up, out, and into the world. So, what has your
Yeah.
success been with that so far? Like, beyond just TikTok, how have you been able to promote your work, push your work? Or is it right now still, because it's in that developmental stage, is it
Yeah.
really still focused more on social media?
Yeah, well, I would say just this year alone, like January was the first time I ever had a show of my musical theater music. I finished Shelley Shazam in December, and then January was the first show that two of the songs were featured in, and it's kind of started to grow from there. But so far, it's just been cabarets and being featured with other artists and things like that. This last show I had a couple weeks ago, it was a new composers cabaret, actually came from TikTok, which is really cool. Um, and I had a couple people in the audience talk to me after and tell me how much they love my music. For listeners at home, I have like 1,700 followers. Like it's, in my head, I'm like, that's nothing really in the grand scheme of TikTok. But I guess this is my last plug for TikTok and just promoting yourself in those little ways. It's just like, if you're in a niche community, you just never know who you're reaching. The theater kids are on TikTok. I will tell you that they're on TikTok. So it's just cool. It's cool to see that is one way to promote your work. And it's proven to be a good opportunity for me so far. Other than these couple shows I've had, I am just emailing and pitching people and networking and just trying to do that on my own. And
That's
yeah, I
amazing.
mean, the hard part of it,
Yeah.
and I will definitely be honest and say that like I do it in waves, like
Yeah.
I'm not focusing on that part of the creative project every day. And
Yeah.
that's also something I
Yeah.
struggle with because I'm not sure it is something that you need to do every single day. But also, it's like as independent artists, it's like that's just the biggest thing we hear is like, if you want to make something happen, you create it yourself. And that's
Yeah.
why we're all doing this, right? We
Yeah.
like to do that and we believe in ourselves and our
Yeah.
projects and the people we're surrounding ourselves with. But it's like, oh, how much of that, like, and it gets you down sometimes. I
It's
don't know.
not
I'd be
easy.
curious to hear your thoughts
No,
on
no,
that a bit
I
too.
completely, I mean, I think that's the hardest part about making art on an indie level is the fact that you need to make the art in order to be taken seriously and taken to that next level that you want to go to. But
Yes.
to make that art in the first place is so challenging. And every project has that same process. And that's what I try to
Yeah.
explain to people. CK is 12 years old. We've been around for some time now. We've gotten a chance to grow and like really learn.
Yeah.
And I've gotten a chance to grow and learn with the company. And like one thing that I've always said is like every project is entirely different, has its own process. So I could make a great short film and that film could go to 30 festivals around the world. But then to make the next one, it's a similar process and I have to start back from zero. Like it's not just like, oh, this got acclaim, so now I just automatically can make something. It's not even like that even for the largest creatives in the world. Maybe they have an easier time getting things made, but even you hear
Right.
from everybody, every composer out there, every writer, they say the same thing. Oh, it took me 10 years to get this made. It took me 20 years. I've been trying to get this made since I was in college. I've been trying. And it's
Right.
because it is not easy no matter what world you're in. So I get that. And I think the hardest part
Yeah.
is wearing those hats, right? Being able to say like, I want to be the creative, but then also having to say, okay, but I need to know the business. I need to know the marketing. I need to know this. I need to know that. It's just a lot of work and it's draining and it's
Yeah.
tiring. But all I can say is keep going, keep doing it, because if your TikTok anything like what your work is, I know you have something that's worth spending a lot of time and pushing. So yeah, keep going, please, for everybody's sake.
Wow. Thank you for saying that.
Of course, of course. No, I really mean it. I genuinely think your work is really exciting. And I always find it very exciting to see new, fresh voices in the space, especially in theater, because I feel like, theater is a weird art form in the sense where people don't want to leave their houses the same way, and it needs to reach people in unique ways. That's why I think, that's why I ask you if, what you're going to be working, how you're going to be pushing these projects, if it's going to be like putting on
Yeah.
shows and all this stuff, because I know that there's now different forms of how we can experience musical theater. We're in a weird crossroads, right? Like the New York Times released an article recently of the fact that none of the Broadway
I
musicals
know.
made any money, right? And it's like the first
Which is
time
just
ever.
like,
I know it's jaw dropping because I mean what that tells you is that the industry is hurting, and obviously there's a lot of reasons, right? Accessibility and price of tickets way too expensive. You're not allowing enough people to come see the shows. You're pricing people out, and that's automatically hurting people. But also the price of the musical is so expensive days. And, now people, just the way the world works, like people are just not leaving their homes the same way. So I guess, my question is, would you be open to exploring your musicals in unique mediums as well? Like in the form of, I don't know. I feel like there's so many new evolutionary things that are
yeah,
happening in art, like now in film, there's a lot of these vertical series. They're interesting, but I guess they're like soap operas that are vertical, and you download apps that were huge in China. Now they're starting to come over to the US, and they're massive industry employing hundreds and hundreds of actors daily. Like all of these, it's
gosh.
crazy. It's pretty huge. And they're just called verticals, right? They're just like basically like they're different apps and companies that have their
Yeah.
own. I'm curious to hear if you have had any thoughts of other ways to sort of get your musical out there beyond just the stage, given the current state
Wow.
of the industry.
Yeah, I mean, no, but I think I should. I've been like really tunnel visioned on a couple workshop and
Yeah.
developmental opportunities in the theater space. And like I said, since I've just started really applying and focusing on that aspect of my career this year, I feel like I'm still kind of chugging along and I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, something's going to come to fruition. But I have never even heard of that.
Yeah. I mean,
And
there's
this is really cool.
so many ways
The answer
because
is yes.
yeah, because honestly, like I think that's great that you're like open to stuff because I think more creatives need to be because the world is just changing and we need to like as artists, like artists have always to me been at the forefront of change and been willing to accept change. And I think obviously there's a lot of really scary change happening and by ways of like AI and other technology, but also there are things that are happening that are making art more accessible. And I think
Yeah.
that's the thing is like, how can we grab something like theater, which clearly is hurting right now, and how can we put it in new mediums? Like I've always thought, like, the audio podcast is so popular. The narrative podcast, I mean, like the radio plays and all that stuff. It's huge now. Like every major movie star is like making a new Audible original podcast where it's a
Right?
script. It's like a scripted podcast. You know what I mean? I wonder, is there going to be a musical version of that one day? Like, is that going to exist? That's going to make it really accessible. Is there going to be different episodes that basically have different songs and a full arc and a full story? Is there going to be verticals, right? Are there going to be vertical series that are musicals? Are there going to be more original movie musicals that are coming out of this lack of being able to spend money on theater, right? Because I mean, you think of a movie, an independent movie can be anywhere from, it could be as little as nothing or as, around the 1 to $2 million mark, right? I mean, you can make a musical for that, and that costs the amount of putting on a musical for like a week on Broadway, depending on what kind of show you're putting on. Or it
Seriously.
could be per day, it could be $1 million a day. There are some shows that have been like that on Broadway. So, I think it's just important, I think, as creatives that we are having that conversation with ourselves saying, what other way can I get my piece and my thought out there? Because I think you're writing this for a reason. You're not just creating this art just because you're like, I feel like I want to make a musical. You're writing this because you're saying, I have this desire to get out this feeling, this thought, this story, because I believe. And if you believe in it, I think it's so much more important that the work gets out there as opposed to the work never being seen because the state of the industry sucks. So, but that's also not to say, because I am a firm believer in live performance, that's also not to say don't go after the live performance. It's just, I
Yeah.
think it's important that we're open, as creatives, that we're like constantly giving ourselves grace to be able to say, okay, hey, this didn't work out. What can work out? Because you never know. Musical theater to me is so vital for the cultural zeitgeist. I know a lot of people don't agree. I know there are haters of the musical out there. This is not for you, but for everybody else. I mean, musicals have always shaped our society. They have shaped the films that we watch and love, the theater that we love. The musical is so important, and I would hate to see it die in 20 years because of this moment in time where people are too selfish and greedy. I would hate to see it disappear. And I think the only way to keep it alive is through being open to various mediums. It totally can happen.
Yeah, well, this conversation's really making, like, I really admire how you just have such a strong pulse on. I think you're one step beyond me in your bigger picture thinking, I guess, in the sense of transitioning into different mediums. Maybe that's because you are in, like, you're really spread in all of the different, like, I feel like I'm very much just like theater music worlds,
Yeah.
and I've kind of viewed them as separate entities, other than the ways in which they obviously and naturally influence each other. But oh, I gotta do some journaling after this to be like, I'm gonna have a little mental moment of, is this the medium?
Hey, you know what? I think,
Yeah.
but like you said, there's nothing that beats the live performance. And I am also someone
Yeah.
who's a sucker for it. So I feel you fully on that. Well, I mean, as far as like your process goes, like what is your process for creating, a musical? Like where do you usually start? And even if it's like the songwriting side, like how do you get your inspiration? How do you kind of just really get started? Because it's so daunting. It's
Yeah.
challenging.
I think definitely it's the songs always come first. And I use the songs to try to imagine what kind of characters would sing those songs and then just
Wow.
work backwards. I think with Shelly Shazam, it was a bit different because, like we talked about earlier, I was like working from that pre existing story that my sister wrote. And then like letting what was happening in the pages like jump out to me of, yeah, like what moments in this should be musicalized,
Yeah.
which is a totally different process, honestly, than when you're just sitting at your piano writing these standalone songs. And I'm actually kind of in the process now of reworking a lot of those songs for more specificity. Like a lot of the ones you hear on TikTok, I think, well, it's hard because I think they did well, like, on a platform like that, and also, like, live, when I had this show the other week, it's like I got amazing feedback from people because they're pretty general. Like, listening to some of these songs, it's not clear who the character is, which a lot of musical theater, like, practitioners and teachers and, even programs that I've applied for, I don't think necessarily, like, want that. Because the whole thing is like, well, why does this need to be a musical? Like, what character is singing this song? What story is it serving? Meanwhile, yeah, so I guess I'm trying to like fit those songs. It's just like lyric tweaks and things like that of getting ideas for a character and like making them, like I'm making one of them a duet. But yeah, I'm kind of taking those songs, trying to find the characters for those songs, and then expanding on who those characters are when I write the script. I'm like, the book I'm reading right now is like really informing one of those characters too. Like, I try to get inspiration all around me because I also, like, with my day job, I work completely from home remotely. Like, sometimes I feel like I'm very much just to myself.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, it's important to consume media and be reading. And yeah, I would say it's always a changing journey. Like, I always have thoughts about like, all right, this is the week I'm actually gonna like schedule block, like this is your music time, this is your writing time, this is your, but it doesn't really work that way. I just kind of sit down at the piano when I have time. And I really do use these like programs and applications I was talking about for deadlines, because other than that, like, I don't know how you feel, but like setting deadlines for yourself when you have like
Challenging.
just a ton of things, it's
Oh
hard,
yeah. Yeah. No, that's so.
especially like they're arbitrary. Like you're just
Oh
like,
yeah. Yeah. No, that's so real because like it's so
yeah,
easy to just get caught up in the fact that's like, well, I made that deadline. No one really needs it. No one's actually waiting for it. So I'll put it off.
yeah,
I'll
I'll do
go
it
to,
tomorrow.
yeah, I'll go to this event, this show.
Yeah,
I'll go, scroll on TikTok for a little bit. It's very easy to
yeah,
forget and to keep yourself, aligned with it. But I've always said that I think the best thing any creative can do is make sure they have a calendar, right? And like they build a calendar, they're building in time to
yeah,
rehearse, time to create, time to do meetings with people, time for
yeah,
networking, time for
yeah,
studying up, like all this stuff is so important. Like we as creatives, we have the most interesting, weird job in the world because it's such a different thing, it's not so black and white. There's not always a task for you to do, so it's like you just have to make sure you're keeping yourself busy and giving yourself those deadlines. But it sounds like you have a really good head on your shoulders when it comes to that because it's tough. It is not easy to do. So good on
I
you.
try and
Good on
I
you.
try. I
Yeah.
definitely like, I think collaboration is like what I'm really seeking right now. And like, I think because, as you can probably tell from this chat, like I do like to chat. I'm a chatty gal. But like, I mean that with collaboration too. Like a
Yeah.
lot of this phase of my life has been like really solo, independent, creative work. And there are moments where I feel like I would be genuinely happier working on things if I was working with other people.
Yeah.
But
I
that's
feel
also
that.
just like a hard world to navigate.
So
Like how do you
challenging.
start? Within the music world, I've definitely had my good share of collaborations, but the theater stuff, it's like when's the right moment to bring
Yeah.
someone on board this, like, because with songs it's like you're working together on a song or you're working together on an album, but for like a musical, probably similar for film too, it's like you're just in it for the entirety of the
Oh yeah.
project, which is like, how does that even work?
No, it
I
is.
don't I don't know.
It's so challenging. And yeah, it's hard. I think you bring up such a good point. That when collaboration is so exciting, but when to bring on the collaborator is so tough because I mean, in a perfect world, you'd have collaborators from the developmental stage, like really, really early on. But it's not always so easy to get people to buy into a project that hasn't been created yet. So I work a lot. A lot of the films that we have right now that are in development are like me or like one of our producers working with a writer to develop the script, not the producer writing it by any means, but allowing the writer to write it and sort of being there to guide them and give them deadlines and make it feel real, and it's
I
hard to
love
do.
that.
Yeah, but I think the studio system does it really well in film and Broadway does it well, when there's investors or a large production company. But for some reason, independent artists don't want to
This
ask.
level.
Yeah, like for some reason, I feel like independent creators just don't ask people. There are so many
Yeah.
producers out there, so many people who want to make something. They need a producer, director, a whatever it is, a production company. They also need people like you, writers
Yeah.
like you who are making great art. And you need that
Yeah.
relationship that I think if more people just went out and asked, I guarantee you more producers would be like, well, hell yeah, what are we making? Like, let's do this. Collaboration's cool.
Yeah. No, that's good to know. And I say all that not to leave out the few close people in my life who
Sure.
have been on board with
Sure.
these
Yeah.
projects. But yeah, it's just interesting too at this phase because like you saying all that is honestly inspiring me to reach out to more people kind of like at my stage too. I think like in my head, I always wonder, especially from a financial standpoint, I'm like, are there agreements that have to be set monetarily, even though this isn't a project that's making money yet? I feel like it's obviously a whole other question of royalties and splitting things up when
Yeah.
a project is going to monetize. But like when you're writing a musical and there's nothing attached to it yet,
Yeah, you have no idea.
like you're just doing it and you don't know
100%.
what's going to come from it. I guess maybe the main thing is just to make whatever situation you're working with extremely clear with whoever you're working with from the
That's
very
it.
beginning. I always just like, I'm a little scaredy cat, like safe with that stuff.
No, but that's
I don't
the
know
way
if
to
what I'm
be.
saying makes sense.
I get what you're saying. Like that's the way to be. And it's tough. You got to be precious about your work, but also you got to be open to collaboration. And that fine line is not easy. It's not easy to navigate, but I know you'll figure it out. I mean, your art is so good and I'm so excited to see where your shows go. And I hope when they're all said and done and they're out there in the world, you come back, you'll be even bigger by then and we'll be able to all chat
My gosh.
about your projects when they're out there in the world. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look,
I
Julia, thank
look
you so
forward to
much.
that.
Thank you so much for taking time and for hopping on today. I'm really, like I said, I'm just excited to see where you go and all the work that you do. And, we're rooting for you. So keep going, keep making some great art.
Thank you so much for having me, and ditto to everything back. This has been such a fun conversation and very inspiring to me. So thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of CK Café. As always, you can subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow us online on Instagram and all social media platforms at CK Productions NY. And make sure you subscribe to our Substack newsletter. We launch a bunch of really cool stuff. We launch our new films, our new pieces of theater that we're working on. Everything can be found on there. Thank you so much once again to Julia Segal for hopping on the show. We're so appreciative, and we love talking to more independent creatives. So if you're interested in being on, hit us up, DM us, send us an email. We'd love to talk to you. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.